Part 122. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei-Shi Niang. Chapter 1211. When Meng Ping and Lu Ligan arrived at Tianxiang Tower, Lao Ni and Jiao Jiao were already in the box. Jiao Jiao was the stewardess Lu Ligan had seen on the plane when he took Lao Ni's Prime Minister No. 1 to Sanya during the Spring Festival. When Lu Ligan saw it at first, he was stunned for a moment. He felt like he had seen him before. Jiao Jiao asked, "Why, Mr. Lu, don't you recognize me?" Only then did Lu Ligan remember who she was. Lu Ligan said, "I know her. Of course I know her. I was so sorry at that time. I felt that such a flower was about to be inserted into Lao Ni's cow dung." Jiao Jiao giggled. While smoking, Lao Ni looked at him sideways, and finally nodded his chin upwards proudly. As soon as Lu Ligan saw her, he thought of Fifa and Menjao, and cursed, "Lao Ni, you are too cruel. Those two haven't even finished their confinement period in Hong Kong yet. Are you going to sow seeds again?" "Who told you? It's already been almost 100 days," Lao Ni said with a smile. "Let me tell you first, there are no existing houses now, and the supply of goods is tight." "Who told you at that time? I asked you to buy one but you refused to buy it," Lu Ligan said. "Now, we have a place to live, but we have to book a house even if it's off-plan," Lao Ni and Jiao Jiao said. "Just keep an eye on him and ask for a house." "Okay, Mr. Lu, I won't let you go," Jiao Jiao said. "Get up," Lu Ligan and Jiao Jiao said. Jiao Jiao didn't know what Lu Ligan was going to do, but she stood up anyway. Turn around," Lu Ligan said. Jiao Jiao turned around and faced Lu Ligan again. Lu Ligan stared at her belly and shouted, "It's still by the Wang." Jiao Jiao looked at him, feeling confused and didn't know what he was talking about. Lu Ligan said, "The dawn here is quiet. Lao Ni, you are a lazy farmer and haven't sown the seeds yet." Jiao Jiao finally understood what he was talking about. Her face turned red instantly, and she said angrily, "Ignore you." Lao Ni and Meng Ping laughed, and Lao Ni said, "It's not that the farmers are incompetent, nor is the land incompetent. It's because we have taken measures to prevent the crops from being too dense and not to be planted again after planting. We need to rotate crops scientifically." Lu Li laughed loudly and cursed, "Old Ni, you are really an old man." Meng Ping sat there, looking at Lao Ni, then at Jiao Jiao, shaking his head secretly. He didn't know what happened to these women now, but no matter how bad the women were, their roots were still in the men. Only with the existence of an old pervert like Lao Ni would Fifa Menjao and Jiao Jiao stick to him, and he himself had given him a hand. "Lao Ni, I read in the Qianzhong Evening News, what's going on with your funding of poor college students?" "Isn't it just funding poor female college students?" Lu Ligan asked. "The news in Hangzhou in the past 2 days has been full of hype. It is said that Lao Ni will spend 100 million yuan to set up a student aid fund to support 50 students from poor families who cannot afford tuition and go to college every year. This is Lao Ni after purchasing a private jet. He is once again in the news." Before Lao Ni said anything, Meng Ping scolded him half-truthfully, "I don't even understand this. It's just for fame and reputation. Lao Ni is now greedy. He wants money, women, and now he wants fame. He wants to be alone, all taken." Lao Ni was a little embarrassed by Meng Ping's remarks. He chuckled and said, "Let's get to the point. Let's get to the point." The reason why Lao Ni called Meng Ping and Lu Ligan over this time was because of their account. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin had been operating it for a year. The original 500 million has now become more than 800 million. Lao Ni wants to discuss with them whether to return the 500 million yuan or continue to use it. "Of course I will continue to use it," Lu Ligan said. "The bigger the cost, the greater the room for operation and the greater the profit." Meng Ping nodded. He also agreed with Lu Ligan. Since the money in the account has been growing, there is no need to touch it. But if we continue to borrow, these borrowers say that the interest rates for borrowing money have increased in society now, and they hope that we will also increase. Lau Ni said. How much? Lu Ligan asked. Double. Lau Ni said, the monthly interest rate is 1 and 2 cents. Lu Ligan and Meng Ping were silent. They knew that the interest rates on private loans had indeed increased in the past 2 years, and the culprits, who absorbed the largest amount of private funds, were real estate developers. Many companies spent all their money to acquire a piece of land and photograph it. Later, the subsequent funds will have to be borrowed. What's more, the money for the land acquisition is all borrowed. Thinking that house prices are rising every year, as long as you can get the land, you can make a fortune. The interest is nothing. In this way, more people borrow money, which will raise the interest rate of private loans a lot. Now it is generally the monthly interest rate has reached 1 to 5 cents to 2 cents. These people here in Lau Ni are asking for 1 cent and 2 cents, which should be said to be not high. But in this case, the interest they need to pay every year is 72 million. Meng Ping did some calculations and found that the annual interest rate of 1 cent and 2 per month was more than 14 points. Compared with the bank's loan interest, it was indeed much higher. But when he took the money from Mr. Chiao and Mr. Yang, the annual interest rate was more than 14 points. It was only around 10 o'clock, so we still came here. Lu Ligan said, don't be afraid. The profits we make now are more than enough to cover the interest. We are still making money with other people's money. For the more than 300 million yuan, we don't have a penny of capital ourselves, so we all use other people's money. The money you earned, just keep doing it. I think it's okay, Meng Ping said. Lau Ni breathed a sigh of relief and said, I'm afraid you won't agree. I think it's a good deal. This kind of money is paid with interest once a month. When we don't want to use it, we just return the principal to others. What's the big deal? Lu Ligan and Meng Ping both nodded. Do I need to go through any other procedures? Meng Ping asked. No need, Lau Ni said, I'll make a phone call and tell them to continue using it. We just need to pay them the monthly interest on time. The interest cannot be included in the agreement. The IOU for the principal is there, and we can't rely on it. What procedures should we go through? Our interest did not arrive on time, and people came to ask for the principal in minutes. Lu Ligan said yes, then it will be up to you to handle this matter, Lau Ni. After dinner, Lu Ligan had something to go back to the company. Meng Ping followed Lau Ni to his company. He sat in Lau Ni's office for a while and said, I'll go over there and have a look. Lau Ni knows what he's talking about. When Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin were there, Lau Ni said, go ahead. As soon as Meng Ping walked into the financial business department, Ren Rongrong shouted, Lau Meng, I thought you had forgotten us because you haven't been here for so long. Meng Ping said, that's why I think there is no need for us to come here. You are doing a good job. Ren Rongrong bowed deeply to Meng Ping and said, thank you, boss. Everyone laughed. When Chen Yakin saw Meng Ping coming in, she looked up, then lowered her head again. When Meng Ping came to her side, she whispered, coming. Meng Ping nodded and said, here we are, how are you now? Chen Yakin nodded. Ren Rongrong came over and asked, is this a whisper session? If so, I'll walk away. Chen Yakin blushed and reached out to hit her. Meng Ping laughed and said, if it was a secret, he would have said it on the phone. Oh, it turns out that Chen Yakin often makes phone calls behind our backs. She is calling you, Lau Meng, Ren Rongrong said. Chen Yakin scolded, if you continue to talk nonsense, I will tear your mouth apart. Who calls you often? Okay, let me correct you, Lau Meng. Except for the calls Chen Yakin made to you, all other calls were from work. Chen Yakin is a good comrade. Others in the office laughed again, and even Meng Ping felt a little shy this time. He said, Why do I feel like I'm entering a wolf's den as soon as I enter here? I can only fight. Ren Rong Rong looked at him and said, "Why, you still want to attack? Who do you want to attack? I'll help you assist." Meng Ping looked at Ren Rong Rong and asked, "Have you achieved something again? Are you so excited?" Ren Rong Rong chuckled, and Chen Yakin said, "Shanghai Copper has just closed its position." "No wonder," Meng Ping said. A tense battle was over, and now it was time to clean up the battlefield. The war room was filled with a rare relaxed atmosphere. It was no wonder that Meng Ping could spot it at a glance. "Boss, is there any reward?" Ren Rong Rong asked. "Are you okay today?" Meng Ping looked at the closed door. "If it's okay, I'll treat you to dinner. You can choose the hotel and choose the dishes yourself." "Oh," everyone in the office cheered, and Meng Ping booed and said, "But you can't let Lao Ni know about it. If Lao Ni knows about it, he will be afraid that I will lead you astray. TCH. How can he have time to take care of us? He must be too busy." Chen Yakin said disdainfully. This was a bit ambiguous, which showed that she knew a lot. This busyness definitely did not mean being busy at work. "Call me when you've made the reservation." Meng Ping raised his cell phone to Ren Rong Rong and said. Ren Rong Rong made an okay gesture, and Meng Ping and Chen Yakin said, "I'll leave first." Chen Yakin waved her hand and said, "Bye." Meng Ping returned to Lao Ni's office, but Lao Ni was no longer there. Meng Ping went downstairs and got into the car. He originally wanted to go to Zhang Chen's office opposite, but he thought that he had not told Zhang Chen when he came in the morning. He had to have dinner with Chen Yakin and the others again in the evening, so he might as well not go there. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to find an excuse to come out. Zhang Chen would definitely drag him to eat with him. Meng Ping called Lu Ligan and told him that he was going to have dinner with Ren Rong Rong and Chen Yakin that night. "I will show up at Zhang Chen's place tomorrow," Meng Ping and Lu Ligan said. Lu Ligan said, "Yes, you can fall into the flowers with peace of mind tonight." After speaking, he left. Meng Ping scolded, You two stingy people are not ignored in Hangzhou. I need to come to comfort them." "Yes, if we finish all these things, how can we still have a chance for you, Lao Meng?" Lu Ligan said. "Just cherish it, Lao Meng." Meng Ping hung up the phone before Lu Ligan finished speaking. The underground parking lot of splendid Jiangnan was very cool. Meng Ping simply opened the car window, put down the seat, and had a good sleep. He came from Nanjing in the morning and got up too early. Now he feels a little sleepy. This day is September 12, 2001. Thank you to Crush Killer VIP for the reward. Thank you to Wonderful on the Road and Book Friends 2017021010395610 for your monthly votes. Thanks for all the votes and reading. I wish you all a happy life. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Shi Niang. Chapter 1212. Dinner was booked at the newly opened San Mao Hotel. The hotel's business was very good. The reservation lady told Ren Rong Rong on the phone, "Miss Ren, if you insist on having a private room instead of sitting in the lobby, you may have to arrange it until 8 o'clock in the evening after the bell." Ren Rong Rong said, "Yes, I must have a private room. It doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock, it's fine at 8:30. "Okay, Miss Ren, if there is a seat in advance, can I call you?" the ordering lady said. Ren Rong Rong said, "Yes, thank you." At 6:30 in the evening, Meng Ping was still in the underground parking lot. He had just woken up. He had slept for a long time. Chen Yakin called Meng Ping and told him, "You can come up now. Lao Ni has left." Meng Ping then went upstairs, and when he arrived at Ren Rong Rong's office, Meng Ping cursed, "What a world, asking for a meal is like a thief." Ren Rong Rong and Chen Yakin laughed. Chen Yakin said, "The door here is always open to you. It's you who dare not come up. In fact, It doesn't matter if you come up. If Lao Ni sees it, he won't say anything. He himself too busy. The word busy was mentioned again. This busy has a specific meaning. Meng Ping thought that it was probably related to Jiao Xiao. It seemed that Lao Ni's flowers had been spent a bit blatantly. You haven't called from the hotel yet? Meng Ping asked Ren Rongrong, and Ren Rongrong said no, you lost, get the money quickly. Meng Ping took out a note of 100 yuan and gave it to her. Ren Rongrong took it with her right hand and handed it to Baojuan with her left hand, telling her to buy fruit tomorrow. Ren Rongrong called Meng Ping earlier and told Meng Ping that the hotel business was very good and that she had to turn over the table to get her turn. Meng Ping laughed at her and said, "You have been deceived. This is just a gimmick of the hotel. They will definitely call before 6:30 when you called." Ren Rongrong said it was impossible. The two of them were on the phone, and they immediately bet 100 yuan within the limit of 6:30. It was already past 6:30, and they were willing to admit defeat. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin were in the office, discussing crude oil futures. They both said that crude oil futures had been lying there for a long time, and there seemed to be no possibility of raising their heads. Meng Ping sat there and listened, half understanding. Around 7:40, Ren Rongrong's phone rang. It was from the new San Mao Hotel, telling her that a private room has been paid for and you can come over now. The six of them hurried downstairs. It was still rush hour at this time and it was difficult to get a car outside. Meng Ping said, "Squeeze, squeeze, you are all as thin as loaches. If you can squeeze in, just one car will go by." Chen Yakin sat in the passenger seat. Ren Rongrong and three other people squeezed into the back row. Molly stacked on top of Ren Rongrong and Baojuan. Ren Rongrong shouted, "It's okay to go, but it's definitely not okay to come back after eating." When they arrived at the new San Mao Hotel, it was already 8 o'clock. They took the elevator to the third floor. The supervisor was waiting for them at the elevator entrance and told them, sorry, the guest in that room had indeed left half an hour ago. Pay the order." But after they finished selling the order, they still sat and continued chatting. "We can't chase them away, so please wait a little longer." They had no choice but to wait in the rest area for 10 minutes, but the person in the box still didn't leave, but the people in another box left. The supervisor immediately arranged for someone to clean the box, and after changing the tablecloth, invited them in. There was still a strong smell of alcohol in the box. Meng Ping sniffed and said, "Yes, it was still Wu Yanjai." The supervisor chuckled, "Sir, you are so awesome. What they drank was really Wu Yanjai." "Then give me some Wu Yanjai, and I'll keep drinking it with them," Meng Ping said. The supervisor smiled and said, "Okay." Ren Rongrong, Chen Yakin, and the others looked at Meng Ping and laughed wildly. They were in the box. It was almost 9 o'clock when they ate. Meng Ping's cell phone rang. He looked at it and saw that it was Lu Ligan. He quickly picked it up. As soon as the call came through, Lu Ligan laughed and shouted on the phone, Lao Mang, big news, the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York was hit by a plane." "No way, who did you listen to?" Meng Ping asked. "The news, what happened just now is on TV." Meng Ping quickly shouted to Ren Rongrong, "Quickly, turn on the TV." The poll said that the World Trade Center in New York was hit by a plane. The World Trade Center is almost synonymous with New York. As long as you see the two vertical twin towers on TV, you will know that this is New York and Manhattan. For those of them who are engaged in real estate, it is even more difficult for any real estate developer. I didn't expect that one day I would be able to build a building as influential as the World Trade Center. How many houses and buildings across the country are named after the World Trade Center and Manhattan? Ren Rongrong pressed the remote control and searched the TV. At around 8:50 in the evening, all the TV channels were either broadcasting the subtitles at the end of the TV series or advertising. Where would there be news? CCTV's hourly news. Then it's not until 9 o'clock too. Ren Rongrong looked at Meng Ping and shook his head. Meng Ping asked, Gangzi, where is the news? Where did you see it? I'm in Zhang Chen's office. We're watching CNN. What just happened? We bumped into each other at 8:46. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. What's wrong, Pol? Meng Ping shouted. Another one, Lao Meng, another one, holy shit, the South Tower was also knocked down. Haha, Lao Meng, it's still real, both buildings are filled with thick smoke, like two big chimneys, Lu Lirod shouted. At this time, CCTV also began to broadcast major news. Meng Ping and the others saw on TV that Building 1 of the World Trade Center, the North Tower, was hit by a plane. The scene was shocking. It was obvious that it was not a plane. It's a small plane, but it should be a commercial airliner. CCTV has not continued to broadcast the report of the impact on Building 2, but Lu Ligan has already told them. Due to their professional sensitivity, Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin immediately knew that this was a major emergency affecting the world's financial markets. It's New York, it's Manhattan, and what happened was the World Trade Center. The impact can be imagined. Where can I watch CNN? Chen Yakin asked Meng Ping. Meng Ping originally wanted to say Zhang Chen's office, but then he remembered, he said that in my room, the TV in my room in the International Building can watch CNN. Ren Rongrong stood up immediately and told Baojuan, you pay the bill. After buying it, go back to the office and let's go. Meng Ping said yes. He took out his wallet, threw it to Baojuan and said, come on, buy it with my money. The three people ran out immediately. They arrived at the International Building, took the elevator upstairs, went to Meng Ping's room, and turned on the TV. At this time, not only CNN, but almost all TVs around the world, from Phoenix TV in Hong Kong to NHK in Japan, to Sky TV in the UK, were playing this news. They still tuned the TV to CNN, since that was the source after all. The latest picture on TV was no longer the World Trade Center, but just now, at 9:37, just as they were going upstairs, the third plane crashed into the Pentagon, and one of the Pentagons was knocked off. Corner, thick smoke billowing. I'm going, Meng Ping shouted, this is definitely not an accident. This is planned and premeditated. Someone is declaring war on the United States. Ren Rongrong picked up the phone and immediately called Baojuan and asked her, where are you? Baojuan said, we just went downstairs and were waiting for the bus at the entrance of Xinsan Mao. Ren Rongrong was furious and cursed, why are you so lazy? What are you doing for food? When you get to the office, open the external disk immediately and tell me the situation. After Ren Rongrong cursed, she threw her phone on the bed. She saw Meng Ping and Chen Yakin looking at her in surprise. She shook her head, looked at her watch and said, at this time, the foreign exchange and stock futures markets in New York had just closed. The market is opening and there is going to be an earthquake, so they still have time to wait. Meng Ping and Chen Yakin nodded, understanding why she was so angry. Meng Ping said, wrong, what you said reminds me why we chose this time. Those who launched the attack knew that this time would have the greatest impact. Well done, yes, Lao Meng, your intuition is very good. Ren Rongrong walked around the room. She told Chen Yakin that it was over. The US dollar must have suffered a heavy loss. Fortunately, our position was not large. The Japanese yen should rise and we could make up for some losses. Unfortunately, we did not do gold. This wave of gold will definitely rise sharply. Look, Meng Ping shouted loudly. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin quickly turned to watch the TV. On the TV, Building 2 of the World Trade Center began to collapse, from top to bottom, one section at a time. The 3 of them were stunned. They didn't expect that the building that looked so upright would, by this time, he was so fragile, he was really like dregs of tofu. Ren Rongrong's phone rang, and she quickly pressed the speakerphone. Baojuan's breathless voice came from the phone. Sister Ren, the circuit breaker is over. The circuit breaker is over. The US financial market has activated the risk circuit breaker mechanism. All markets have been closed and will open in a week. Looking at the foreign exchange market, is the dollar falling? Yes, it is falling, but the trading volume is not large. The New York market has shut down, and the European market has just closed. Of course, the trading volume at this time is not large. The first wave will have to wait for the Wellington and Tokyo markets tomorrow morning. Smooth out all our dollars. Sister Ren, are they all flat? Yes, flatten them all, Ren Rongrong said. For gold and crude oil, the United States is closed, and it depends on London's opening, Chen Yakin said. It must have all surged, Ren Rongrong said. After another half an hour, Building 1 of the World Trade Center began to collapse. They stared at the TV and watched as the building disappeared. The blue sky behind seemed to suddenly become wider. With the dust mist spread, and the thick smoke from the building disappeared. The sky in the background seemed to be getting bluer and bluer. They all thought of one word: ashes. The scene faded to a corner of the TV, and what followed was a miserable rescue scene. Those unkempt people cried bitterly at the camera, and some kept calling God. Many experts were cut into the TV screen. They and Meng Ping had the same judgment. They all said that this was a terrorist attack. It was a terrorist attack launched by countries and terrorists in the Middle East against the United States. It is currently targeting other countries. Unknown, but mentioned repeatedly, are Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Ren Rongrong picked up her mobile phone and said to Chen Yakin, "Let's go to the office." Chen Yakin asked Meng Ping, "Are you going with us?" Meng Ping said, "Of course, how could I be absent at this time?" This day is September 12, 2001, September 11, 2001, American time. Thank you for the reward at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, Dal Tin Soldier, and reading the book every day. Thank you Blue Imagination for your monthly pass. Thanks for all the votes and reading. I wish you all good health. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Shi Niang. Chapter 1213. As soon as Meng Ping, Ren Rongrong, Chen Yakin, and the others arrived at the company, Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin quickly started reading on the computer. At this time, the internet was almost full of news about the World Trade Center. Meng Ping stood behind one person for a while, and then stood behind another one for a while. Everyone was talking about it. This morning, the terrorists hijacked not 3 planes, but 4. United Airlines Flight 93 from New Jersey to San Francisco was also hijacked by them. The terrorists planned to hijack the plane and fly to Washington. They occupied the cab. Finally, the crew and passengers were rushed to the rear of the aircraft. At 9:40, some of the people on board had already learned about the attack on the World Trade Center through contact with the ground, and knew that they had become suicide bombs for terrorists. After discussion with the crew on board, everyone decided to resist. The black box and related call records found afterwards restored this thrilling process. At 9:57, the passengers' counterattack began. One passenger said on the phone to his family, "Everyone is rushing to the first-class cabin. I have to go too. Goodbye." At 9:59 minutes and 52 seconds, the tape recorder recorded huge blows, crashes, shouts, and the breaking of glass and plates in the cabin. At 10:026 seconds, by this time, the first-class cabin of the plane should have been occupied by passengers. A passenger shouted loudly, "Get into the cockpit, or we will be dead." Then there was the sound of something hitting the cockpit door, and everyone cheering. 16 seconds later, a passenger yelled, "Come on." At 10 hours 2 minutes and 23 seconds, the plane began to face downwards and turned over in the air. As the passengers continued to fight back, the plane crashed at a speed of 580 miles per hour in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, only a short distance from Washington, D.C. Flight time is approximately 20 minutes. All 40 passengers and crew members were killed. 44 bodies were recovered from the wreckage of the plane, 4 of which were terrorists. News soon spread online, saying that, according to CNN or the Associated Press, the U.S. Department of Defense and the CIA had identified terrorists who were bin Laden's men supported by Iraq, and the U.S. would attack Iraq in retaliation. Iraq is an important oil-producing country in the Middle East. This news soon caused turmoil in the international financial market. Although the U.S. financial market has been closed, the reactions of other markets in the world, especially foreign exchange and crude oil, were almost 24 hours a day. The market, which continues to trade, has begun to respond. Although the trading volume in the market is very small due to the absence of the United States, Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin judge that when the Tokyo Foreign Exchange Market opens at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and the Hong Kong Foreign Exchange Market opens at 9 o'clock, the US dollar will definitely be affected by the first wave. Brent crude oil on the Singapore Exchange at 9 o'clock will also rise at the same time. What they need to discuss now is the trading direction, trading varieties, and strategies. Lao Ni is not a heavenly being. Of course he also knows about the situation in the United States, and he also knows that for them, they are in the middle between heaven and hell. Lao Ni also rushed over. Lao Ni was not surprised to see Meng Ping here. At this time, this was the most exciting place. It was completely normal for Meng Ping to come here to take a look. What they need to discuss now is Lao Ni's external account. The entire domestic financial market is still in a very closed state. It is basically at the level of self-entertainment, even if it is such a major emergency that affects the international financial market. Happened, the domestic financial market was basically indifferent and unmoved. In the domestic market, there are no varieties of crude oil futures, and there are no varieties of gold trading. Foreign exchange transactions are still prohibited, so Meng Ping's domestic accounts have nothing to do with this matter. Meng Ping and Lao Ni said, "Let me see how you make money in the international market." Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin both felt that the focus should be on crude oil futures, and the direction was clear, which was to buy long. Lao Ni agreed with their judgment. He said that as soon as the market opens, buy in large quantities. If you don't buy it now, why wait? It is definitely necessary to buy. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin also agree, but they have differences in trading strategies. Ren Rongrong believes that crude oil should take advantage of this opportunity and enter an upward channel. The number of victims and missing people in the United States was immediately announced by the media. It was said to be more than 5,000 people. The death toll will definitely exceed the 2,400 people in Pearl Harbor. This is the first time that the United States has suffered such a disaster. In the event of a large-scale attack, the Americans will definitely carry out various retaliatory actions in the Middle East. As long as the Middle East begins to be turbulent, crude oil will definitely continue to rise. If the United States attacks Iraq, it will skyrocket. After Chen Yakin analyzed it, she felt that it was not necessarily the case. She said that the current economic data around the world are very ugly, and the economy has not yet recovered. As we analyzed in the afternoon, there is a reason why crude oil has been lying there for a long time. It can be said that the fundamentals supporting the rise of crude oil are still very poor. Second, OPEC has not yet made a decision to cut production. Each oil-producing country has its own evil intentions, and it is still very difficult to make a decision. As long as OPEC does not cut production, the situation of oversupply in the crude oil market will not fundamentally change, and there will be no fundamental change in the price of crude oil. No. Don't forget, this incident will definitely cause a heavy blow to the US economy, including the US financial market. How many financial companies are there in these two buildings? The US economy will definitely go through a difficult period, and if oil prices are high, it will definitely make the US economy even worse. Do those American guys in the Middle East dare to let oil prices rise for a long time? Finally, there is another point. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have huge investments in the United States. If the US economy fails to recover, they will also suffer losses. They do not want the United States to suffer economic recovery due to high oil prices. Slow. What you said makes sense, so what do you think should be done? Lau Ni asked Chen Yakin. I think that affected by this sudden event, crude oil will rise in the short term, but I am not optimistic about the long term. This rise is an irrational stress reaction type of rise and cannot be sustained, because the price that rises due to the sudden event will soon we were knocked back to our original shape, so we can only plan for short-term trading, fast in and fast out. As Chen Yakin spoke, Ren Rongrong kept shaking her head. She said no, Yakin, your judgment is wrong. As long as the United States high pressure on the Middle East continues, oil prices will not fall, and preparations for war will take at least a few at this time. Oil prices will continue to rise, and the last surge will be the day when the war begins. I think we need to make plans for medium and long-term trading. Otherwise, if we leave the market prematurely, we may miss the opportunity to enter the market again. Lau Ni looked at the two of them and asked, you two have no objection to entering the venue tomorrow morning, right? Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin nodded. Lau Ni agreed that tomorrow morning, no matter what, he would enter the venue first. As for the rest of the matter, we would talk about it after entering the venue. From the bottom of his heart, Lau Ni agreed with Ren Rongrong's statement. They all talked about making war fortune and making war fortune. Now it was not easy to find such a good opportunity for himself. He still couldn't make a lot of money. If he did it for a few days, he could make a fortune. How can you enjoy yourself with little money? Chen Yakin sighed, and she said okay, then she will buy it tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, use 70% of the position to buy long, Lau Ni said. Chen Yakin and Ren Rongrong were both shocked. Chen Yakin said, such a large position is too risky. This time, even Rongrong expressed his opposition. 70% of the position was a desperate gamble and should never be done like this. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin both objected vigorously, and Lau Ni was helpless. After all, they were the ones doing the actual trading, so Lau Ni had to compromise, and finally agreed to use 40% of the position. By the time they had settled everything, it was past 12 o'clock. In the meantime, Lau Ni's phone kept vibrating. Lau Ni looked at it and didn't answer it. Instead, he pressed it directly. This time, Lau Ni's phone was vibrating. After Ni pressed the phone down again, he stood up and told Meng Ping to take a walk and have a midnight snack. Meng Ping knew that the one who kept calling Lau Ni must be Jiao Xiao. Lau Ni called himself instead of calling Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin. When they went to have a midnight snack together, it must be Jiao Jiao who would go with him. Okay, she is in Lau Ni's car now. Meng Ping discovered that Lau Ni especially liked to take these girls to have dinner with him and Zhuangzi. It used to be Menjiao and Fi Fei, but now it's Jiao Xiao. Probably because they didn't understand what they were talking about, and they seemed to be very high-ranking, and even how many hundreds of millions of dollars can especially scare girls into admiring Lau Ni. Meng Ping hated doing this kind of thing from the bottom of his heart. Meng Ping looked at Chen Yakin and Ren Rongrong and found that they were both pouting secretly, thinking that they had run away from the new San Mao hotel in a hurry and had not even eaten dinner. In fact, they only invited half of his guests. Meng Ping and Lao Ni said, "You can do as you please, you have many things to do every day and are busy with your business. I don't dare to delay your important events, so I still flatter them and invite them to have a midnight snack." Meng Ping did not refer to Ren Rongrong or Chen Yakin, but to Molly and the others. Lao Ni laughed and said, "Then I won't care about you." "Okay, just treat me like a fart and let me go right here," Meng Ping said. Lao Ni smiled and walked out. Guessing that Lao Ni had already gone downstairs, Meng Ping, Ren Rongrong, Chen Yakin and the others said, "Let's go, how about going to Longxiang Bridge to eat seafood?" "Reliable, Lao Meng," Ren Rongrong patted him on the shoulder. "I'm going to treat you, I'm going to treat you tonight," Bao Juan shouted loudly, shaking Meng Ping's wallet in her hand. "Thank you for the reward for the third fish from top to bottom and the 2 fish from top to bottom. Thank you to Fantasy in the Wind, Book Friends 201912170332388847. Don't worry about the future, just remember the original intention for your monthly pass. Thanks for all the votes and reading. Have a good evening everyone." The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Niang. Chapter 1214. The next morning, Meng Ping got up early and went to Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin's place, waiting with them for the opening of Brent crude oil on the Singapore Exchange. The day before, on the 12th in Singapore, which was the day of 9/11 in the United States, the closing price of international oil prices was $27.77/barrel. As soon as the market opened today, it jumped directly to $29.89/barrel, an increase of 7.63%. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin are both experienced traders. They both know that in this situation, extreme market conditions will occur. Everyone's emotions have been brewing all night. It is not surprising at all that the market has jumped short and opened high, but this kind of high opening, there is an inertia in it, which will cause the price to be too high and surprise everyone. Immediately afterwards, this surprised expression will also be shown on the market, that is, after the opening of the market, there will usually be a very short, natural falling phase, and then continue to rise. If you cannot seize this opportunity, you will have no chance of a whole day. Maybe not. Lao Ni also came here early today. He and Meng Ping sat on the sofa, watching Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin from a distance without disturbing them. At this time, they are in a state of high tension, like a hound, waiting and catching that fleeting opportunity. Chen Yakin also pulled her already long fingers one by one, trying to make them longer so that she could move more accurately and faster when typing on the keyboard. This opportunity appeared 3 minutes after the market opened. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin seized the opportunity and opened positions at 29.33, 29.09, and 28.98. The curve began to rebound in a U-shape at 29.96. They seized the last opportunity. At 29.12 and 29.25, all positions will be established. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin sat up straight, clapped their hands gently, let out a long sigh, looked at each other, and both laughed. The price on the market quickly exceeded $30/barrel, and then continued horizontally. It trades between $30 and $30.10. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, after the London Stock Exchange opened, the oil price exceeded $30.5 per barrel, reaching a maximum of $30.86 per barrel. Lao Ni, Ren Rongrong, and Chen Yakin were all excited. They had won the first battle and their judgment was right. After they finished building a position in the morning, Meng Ping left there and went to Zhang Chen's office. Throughout the whole day, he felt that his heart was still there and he was uneasy. From time to time, he walked away to call Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin. In the evening, Mengping was even happier than them when he learned that crude oil had exceeded $30.5 per barrel after the London Stock Exchange opened. Although he only spent a few hours with Chen Yakin and the others, Mengping realized that the world of trading is so exciting and enjoyable. Compared with it, the world outside of trading is too bland and peaceful. Sloppy. Mengping even wondered whether that old Ni, who was so energetic and lived like a breeding pig every day, had something to do with his deal. As soon as the market opened on the 14th, crude oil jumped to $29.96 per barrel. Chen Yakin was startled and became nervous. Ren Rongrong said to her, "It doesn't matter. Think about it, it rose by $3 in one day yesterday, and it will fall back today. For a moment, isn't it normal?" Chen Yakin insisted that this was a signal that the market was about to reverse. Lao Ni smiled and said, "Reversal in one day." Chen Yakin contradicted him, "What's wrong with reversing in one day? It's normal to reverse in 1 minute." Fortunately, 5 minutes after the opening, the market immediately moved up again, filling the previous gap. Both Lao Ni and Ren Rongrong became excited. Ren Rongrong said, "Did you see it? Yakin, this is what I said, the natural correction has now come up again." Chen Yakin shook her head and said, "No, I just feel so panicked. This feeling is terrible. Wrong, I have never been in this situation before." Lao Ni smiled and said, "You didn't sleep last night, okay? Or, you can go back and have a rest. Xiao Ren and I are here." Ren Rongrong also smiled and said, "The market is rational, not based on feelings. Do you really want to follow your feelings?" Chen Yakin looked at them and felt a little confused. When did these two people sing in harmony like this? Chen Yakin bit her lip, walked away, sat down on the sofa, and stared blankly at Ren Rongrong and Lao Ni. Lao Ni seems to have made up his mind to make war fortune this time. He has been with them almost the whole day and has not gone anywhere else. It is already past 8 o'clock in the evening, and he has not gone to accompany them yet. Xiao. Chen Yakin sat there thinking. She wanted to convince herself that her feeling was wrong. She felt that it was because Mengping did not come today and Lao Ni was here all day, which made her feel bored, so she felt very angry. Bad feeling. Today is a cloudy day, with no stars or moon in the sky. Looking out from where Chen Yakin sat, the sky outside was pitch black. Only when it was close to the windowsill did the sky seem to light up. Chen Yakin knew that it was on the North Ring Road. Street lights. The Hangcheng Center opposite was already taller than their office building, and the entire construction site was pitch black, standing there like a monster. Chen Yakin sat blankly for who knows how long. "Bingo!" Ren Rongrong shouted. Chen Yakin was startled, woke up, and asked, "How much is it?" 31. After Ren Rongrong finished speaking, he laughed softly. Chen Yakin stood up, walked over, and said to Ren Rongrong and Lao Ni, "Let's settle it. Really, we'll just give it up when it's good. We've already made a lot of money now." Neither Ren Rongrong nor Lao Ni made any move, but just sat there and smiled at her. Chen Yakin shook her head and said, please let it go, I really can't stand it anymore." Lao Ni smiled and said, "If it's flat, I won't be able to bear it." Chen Yakin was extremely angry and stared at him. "You. What am I? You are the boss and I am the boss. I have been nagging all day long, who listens to whom?" Lao Ni snorted. When Ren Rongrong saw that the matter was serious, he quickly stood up, put his arm around Chen Yakin's shoulders and said, "Yakin. Chen Yakin twisted around, shook her off, and walked out of the door. Chen Yakin went downstairs and walked along the park beside the canal into the community until she reached the empty first floor, which was surrounded by glass. Inside the glass was an old courtyard. It was said that this was the original appearance of this place. There is a dim light on inside the glass, and the light itself brings a sense of historical depth, bringing people closer to the old house. Although it was a cloudy day, there was not a trace of wind. Even on the edge of the canal, I did not feel cool, but it was extremely hot. Chen Yakin's body soon became a little sticky, and the clothes on her back stuck to her skin, like a layer of skin that couldn't be shed. Chen Yakin wanted to go back to the air conditioner, but when she thought of Lao Ni's disgusting face and the disc that made her feel frightened, Chen Yakin instantly lost her courage. Chen Yakin sat down on a chair by the canal and looked across blankly. She saw the light in Zhang Chen's office was on. If Meng Ping had not returned to Nanjing, he should be there, right? Chen Yakin sighed. Chen Yakin sat there for more than an hour. It was almost 12 o'clock, and the most active trading time in London had also passed. Chen Yakin was thinking about whether to go upstairs or go home directly, when she heard a voice from behind. "I knew you were here." Chen Yakin did not ring. Ren Rongrong came over and sat down next to her. Chen Yakin asked, "How much?" 30.5 to 30.6, a small fluctuation. "It has been more than half an hour," Ren Rongrong said. "Yakin, why are you so insistent?" "For no reason, I just think this is wrong." "I told you, I feel bad." "Nothing is right," Chen Yakin said. "I've thought about it, Yakin. Even if your judgment is right, even if the oil price does not rise, the possibility of it falling will be very small. You have to admit this, right?" Chen Yakin shook her head and said, "Currently, the supply of crude oil has seriously exceeded demand, and global inventories of refined oil and crude oil are too high. If demand does not increase significantly, there will soon be a situation where there will be no place to store oil. I feel that this you can see it all day long. You are being alarmist. I still stick to my judgment. As long as there is no peace in the Middle East, crude oil will not fall. If a war breaks out, have you ever thought about it? The war itself can promote the economic development of the United States and bring about strong demand for crude oil." Ren Rongrong said. "Okay, we each keep our own ideas," Chen Yakin said. "Let's go up," Ren Rongrong said. "I want to sit down for a while." "Let's go, Lao Ni has left," Ren Rongrong said, burst into laughter, and said, "Lao Ni is quite self-aware. He asked me earlier if he was here all the time, and you are unhappy? Isn't it, a little bit?" "I'm too lazy to be unhappy," Chen Yakin said. "But Lao Ni is right about one thing, Yakin. After all, he is the boss, and we are just his employees. We have said some things, and it is his business to listen or not. He is losing money, not ours." "It's his fault," Ren Rongrong said. "Where did his money come from? Isn't it earned by our hard work?" "I don't want to see our hard work go to waste in the end," Chen Yakin said. "Hey, Chen Yakin, are you in charge of Lao Ni's money? Listen to me, but I'm thinking of becoming the boss's wife." Ren Rongrong knew how Chen Yakin would react after she said this. She stood up and ran away. Chen Yakin cursed, "You are such a die-hard bitch," and chased after her. The two of them went upstairs and entered the room one after another. Chen Yakin had forgotten that she was here to chase Ren Rongrong. She immediately walked to the computer and looked at the computer screen. It was like what Ren Rongrong said, and it had been reading at 30.5. Sideways between 30.6. Chen Yakin looked at her watch. It looked like that was the end of the day. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Xiniang. Chapter 1215. Molly was left to keep track of the market in the office, while everyone else went home to have a good rest and prepare to fight again tomorrow. Chen Yakin returned home, took a shower, and just lay on the bed when her cell phone rang. It was Ma Chen Yakin asked, "Molly, what's wrong?" Molly said, "Sister Yakin, I don't know if this matter is important, but I think I should tell you that just now, Several oil-producing countries such as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates have announced that they will guarantee the supply of oil. Do you see any changes on the board? The board has not changed yet, but... Yes, I can't tell now, Chen Yakin said. I understand, Molly. If there is anything new, please call me. Okay, Sister Yakin, bye. Putting down the phone, Chen Yakin lay there, but the more she thought about it, the more uneasy she became. OPEC had been unable to make a decision to reduce production. The price of crude oil had risen in the past 2 days. These American guys, the main members of OPEC, would immediately came out and announced this statement with only one purpose, which is to tell everyone that oil prices cannot rise. Especially at this time, when Big Brother America is furious and looking for enemies all over the world, we cannot stimulate him. The more Chen Yakin thought about it, the more she felt that her original judgment was correct. She sat up, got out of bed, and walked to the living room outside. Without turning on the light, she walked to the water dispenser and poured a glass of water in her hand. She walked over barefoot and opened the balcony door. It finally started to rain outside, and some raindrops were already floating into the balcony. Chen Yakin did not go out, but leaned against the door, drank some water, and then stared outside blankly. The rain is hitting the water of the Meisi River below, the rain is hitting the tops of the trees on both sides of the river, and the rain is floating in the dim light. This rainy day is like Chen Yakin's mood, erratic. From time to time, lightning would suddenly light up, illuminating everything inside pale, and then sink into darkness for a moment, and then from the darkness, everything that was dim and dark would be washed out again by rain. Thunder rolled faintly in the far horizon, but there was no gap to fall, and it turned into Chen Yakin and their neighbor's dog. When Chen Yakin was a child, every time Chen Yakin came back from school, the dog would give Chen Yakin such a low voice. It grunted incomprehensibly while retreating back. As long as Chen Yakin stamped her foot, it would make a woof sound and run away far away. Chen Yakin stamped her feet, but the thunder was still in the sky, neither disappearing nor coming down. Chen Yakin walked back to the living room and sat on the sofa. After thinking for a while, she got up, took off her sweatshirt, put on a nightgown, put on slippers, took the room key and mobile phone from the table, and walked out. The lights in the corridor came on. Chen Yakin walked to the opposite side and rang the doorbell. After a long time, Ren Rongrong's confused voice came from inside. Who is it? Let me open the door quickly, Chen Yakin said. There was a rustling sound from the door, followed by the safety chain that opened the door, and then the latch of the door was opened. The door opened, and Chen Yakin walked in. What's wrong? Ren Rongrong asked. I think something is going to happen, something big. Chen Yakin said that. She then told Ren Rongrong Molly's phone number. Ren Rongrong breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile. What did I think? Just this. What's the big deal? These big-nosed countries say this today and say that tomorrow. What's so strange? They think they are important, but in fact they are bullshit. The international situation is basically it's not up to them to decide, they just want to make their presence felt. No, wrong, we thought of this and that, but we ignored the most fundamental factor, which is the political factor, Chen Yakin said. What political factors? Ren Rongrong asked. Political correctness. They came out to make such a statement at this time because they are panicked. For the sake of political correctness, the current low oil price is political correctness. Anyone who raises oil prices will rub salt into the wounds of Americans, and Americans, they are angry now. Whoever their president wants to punish now, the American people think it is politically correct. Why is Saudi Arabia so active in expressing its stance? Don't forget that bin Laden is a Saudi. Was the single-day increase in oil prices within 10% less than that before? Why has it only been rising for 2 days now? These little brothers in the United States are going to express their stance. Want to curb the rise in oil prices? Wrong, think about it carefully. As Chen Yakin said, Ren Wrong stopped talking, and Chen Yakin continued. If you look at the market in the past 2 days, as long as there is a rise, it will fall back a little, and then it will be sideways for a long time. Why? It shows that everyone has no bottom in their hearts. The mood of the entire market is very fragile. As long as at the slightest sign of trouble, everyone will run away. It's normal for both longs and shorts to be in a stalemate. In the United States, if a decision is made tomorrow about which oil-producing country will be punished, oil prices will skyrocket, Ren Wrong said. Okay, I don't deny the possibility, but as for those countries in the Middle East, no matter who the United States wants to punish, it will be a small-scale war. Such a war will not cause large-scale turmoil in the Middle East. If the United States attacks Iraq, countries such as Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates will immediately announce an increase in production, and other OPEC countries will also follow suit. The increase in production of these countries will be able to make up for the small amount of oil production in Iraq. It is impossible to cause a disruption in the energy market. Supplies are in short supply. Chen Yakin looked at Ren Wrong and said, I mean, to be on the safe side, we will at least reduce our position by half, and would rather make less money. Ren Wrong was a little moved by Chen Yakin, and she said, but this purchase was decided by Lao Ni. He seems to be determined. We can't make arbitrary decisions in this situation, right? Call him to convince him that there is still time now. There are still some sporadic transactions in the market. We can ship some of the goods. But when the market opens in Singapore, I am afraid it will be too late and there will be no chance, Chen Yakin said. Fight now, Ren Wrong asked, you hit me. Of course you fight. Needless to say, he knows my attitude. Now I need to let him know that you have changed your mind. This is very important. You are more convincing than me, Chen Yakin said. Ren Wrong hesitated for a moment, but thinking that this matter was too important, she said, yes, I will fight. Ren Wrong put the mobile phone on the coffee table, pressed the speakerphone first, and then dialed Lao Ni's number. After the phone rang for a while, it was connected. Lao Ni asked breathlessly. What's going on? The United States has started to attack. Where? Ren Wrong quickly said, no, Mr. Ni, several major oil-producing countries in OPEC, held a meeting and issued a statement saying that they would ensure the world's oil supply. What does this have to do with us? Mr. Ni, I want to talk about our positions. Oh, it's a big deal. Let's talk about it tomorrow, Lao Ni said and hung up the phone. Chen Yakin said that he didn't know the seriousness of the matter and continued to fight. Ren Wrong pressed the redial button, and the phone rang twice before being pressed down. This old bastard, Chen Yakin scolded, I'll fight him. Chen Yakin picked up her cell phone and called. The phone was ringing and no one answered. Chen Yakin kept calling. Finally, the call was picked up. Lao Ni yelled on the phone, you don't have to look at whether you are finished or not. Point. Then, she hung up the phone, and Chen Yakin was stunned. After a long time, Ren Wrong sighed and said, forget it, if you fight again, you will be asking for trouble. Chen Yakin's face turned red with anger, but what forced her more than anger now were the thoughts in her mind. Wrong, how about we do it again, Chen Yakin asked Ren Wrong. I don't dare, and it's not in line with the rules. Ren Wrong said, this time is no better than last time. At that time, he let us do it. This time, he has clear intentions and instructions. What is the most important responsibility of our traders? That is, the capital side always is correct, and his instructions are also correct. Under his clear instructions, we have no right to fail to implement or make our own decisions. Yakin, think about what he said yesterday, haven't you been scolded enough? But if you do this, you will miss important events, Chen Yakin said anxiously. Yakin, we can't guarantee that we are 100% correct. What if our judgment is wrong? We have reduced half of our positions today, and oil prices will rise sharply tomorrow. You and I can afford this loss. Since Lao Ni has decided to issue trading instructions himself, Yakin, we can only be qualified traders and strictly follow his instructions. This is the only correct choice. Chen Yakin felt that what Ren Rongrong said was right, and she didn't even have the possibility to refute her. Who are you, and what qualifications do you have to think that you are above the financial side? At 9 o'clock, the market opened in Singapore. After the market opened, crude oil continued to fall. Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin stared at the market, but there was nothing they could do. At 9:30, Lao Ni arrived. Everyone in the office was silent. Lao Ni looked at the computer and smiled. 29.87, we still made money. Can I close my position? Chen Yakin asked. Close the position? Close what position? Lao Ni said, don't think you are the only ones watching the news. I am watching the news too. In the United States, the first shot will be fired at any time. As soon as the gun fires, there will be thousands of gold. But, I think. Before Chen Yakin could finish her words, Lao Ni interrupted her. I have decided that as long as the gunshots don't sound, the positions are not allowed to be closed. This time, the Americans will definitely take action. Lao Ni skipped Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin and said directly to Baojuan, did you hear clearly? Baojuan said in a low voice, I know. In the following days, the news was very confusing. The timetable for the US military operations against terrorists was still uncertain. International oil prices continued to decline. By September 24, they fell by $3.74/barrel in one day. On September 26, the OPEC oil ministers' meeting was held in Vienna. However, the meeting did not make the expected decision to reduce production by 700,000 to 1 million barrels, and oil prices continued to fall. At this time, the accounts of Ren Rongrong, Chen Yakin, and the others had already turned from profit to loss. If they closed their positions at this time, they would have to bear a loss of more than 50 million. Lao Ni couldn't bear it. He had always believed that the United States would definitely take action and the oil price would definitely turn green. Turn red and all the losses will be back. By November 2, the day after Halloween, oil prices had fallen for 7 consecutive weeks, falling below the price of $18 per barrel. Finally, even Lao Ni couldn't hold it anymore. He said to Chen Yakin in a hoarse voice, Ping, the warehouse is all flat. In this battle, they lost 323 million yuan. Thank you for the rewards from the third one from the top, Dal Tin Soldier, and reading books every day. Thank you for your monthly votes from number 3 from top to bottom, Lao Chen Tang, 854,479, and Big Eyed Dragonfly. Thanks for all the votes and reading. I wish you all good health. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Xiniang. Chapter 1216. Failure is always harder to face than victory. When you win, even if there are problems of this kind or that, you can easily get over it by not covering up the flaws. Or like the bearded mentor Si, facing another leader who has always been at odds with him, he can only say that the winner has the right not to be criticized. Or as Joachim Pape said, history is written by the victors. More than just writing, you can simply smear on it at will. What about the losers? Apart from the fact that you do not have the right to write history, the second half of Joachim Piper's next sentence, if you change it, suits you very well, but only those who have experienced the truth know the truth. The pain of failure can only be felt by the losers themselves. Clearly, your wounds can only be licked by yourself. I'm afraid you can only swallow silently and unable to express all the consequences. Whatever you say is wrong and meaningless excuses. No one will have the desire to listen. The so-called swallowing with tears is not a loser. Almost no one will sympathize with him when he is being sympathized with. Not ridiculing him is already the greatest kindness. Although Lau Ni's Hong Kong account has not been cleared out in this round of failure in long crude oil futures, it has also greatly damaged his vitality. The entire financial business department of Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin has a chilly atmosphere, and everyone is working on it silently. Do the above things silently. Ren Rongrong told them that everyone should write down their own transaction summaries and write down all the experiences and lessons learned this time. What experience is there? What lessons are there? Chen Yakin said angrily. If there is a lesson, it is not because someone interfered too much. There are so many opportunities to stop losses in time. In October, the oil price still has a few days of short-term decline. Upward. At that time, how many times have I said that it may be the best and only time for us to leave the market? Is it useful? It's useless. Chen Yakin chattered. Ren Rongrong stared at her. Ren Rongrong knew what she wanted to say, but looked at her with his eyes, reminding her that it was inappropriate to say such things in front of other traders, or like that. Trading members have no way to blame the funding side. You can only do your best to do your own job. In trading work, there is no shirk, and no shirk is allowed. Such a trend should not be formed in the department. Don't teach the children badly. When all mistakes occur, the habit that everyone must develop is to first review themselves. Whether it is a profit or a loss in this transaction, you must first review yourself. In the entire long transaction process of this time, are there any mistakes? Mistakes, whether there are any things that are not done properly, this is the reason why you need to write a trading diary and a trading summary. The first thing a good trader must overcome is the problem of taking credit. Under Ren Rongrong's gaze, Chen Yakin finally stopped talking. She also realized that, at least in front of her subordinates, she could not transfer all conflicts to the boss or the financial side. This was not in line with professional ethics. Chen Yakin looked at Ren Rongrong and nodded slightly, meaning, okay, I understand. I just let out a bad breath. Ren Rongrong saw Chen Yakin shut up, and she continued. Yakin is right about one thing. This transaction lasted for nearly 2 months. There were indeed many opportunities to stop losses in time. Let's not discuss the reasons for not stopping losses in time, because this is already the case. Accusations, it has no meaning anymore. But as a trader, you must have the ability to point out these stop-loss points and write down the stop-loss strategy clearly. Do you understand? After the summary is written, don't give it to me or Yakin. Give it directly to Mr. Ni. Chen Yakin looked at Ren Rongrong, and somewhat understood the reasons and intentions of her doing this. She wrote all these down instead of complaining and handed them all to Lau Ni. At least she could tactfully remind him not to interfere too much with the front-line commanders. Command power, we all know that you are losing money, but in trading, it is a taboo to cause greater losses because you don't want to lose money. Sometimes the decision to stop losses in time really needs to be made by bystanders. You have messed up and the decision you made is irrational. On the contrary, bystanders can learn from the transaction itself and the discipline of the transaction. Let's go and finish it off with a click. Chen Yakin said, okay, everyone, let's write. Write down your truest thoughts. Think of it as improving your ability to summarize experiences and lessons. After paying the tuition, we will always get something. I wrote down all my truest thoughts and gave them to Lau Ni. Lau Ni sat in his office and watched. The more he read, the more he felt like he was on pins and needles. Everything in these people's words was directed at him. Except for not directly writing their names, in addition to swearing, he has already blamed himself for all the reasons for this defeat. Lao Ni was already in a bad mood. Reading something like this made him feel extremely bad. The first thing he thought about was not whether what they said made sense or not, but that the whole department was against him. This department has lost its control. This is unacceptable to any boss. Even if I lose money, it's still my humming money that I'm losing. You've lost so much money to me, and I haven't deducted a penny from your salary. Am I worthy of you? What, in turn, you still have to make irresponsible remarks. This is really unreasonable. Don't you know that in a unit, the boss is always right? Even if the boss is wrong, you have to look for the reason from yourself instead of looking for the reason from the boss. Lao Ni felt that the entire department was betraying him, which made him even more angry than losing money. Lao Ni sat there, thinking about it for more than an hour. After thinking about it, he picked up the phone on the table and dialed the landline on Ren Rongrong's table. Lao Ni said to Ren Rongrong, "Xiao Ren, come here for a moment." Ren Rongrong got the call and stood up. Chen Yakin asked, "What's wrong?" Ren Rongrong said, "Nothing, the boss asked me to come over." Chen Yakin said, "Oh." After finishing her sentence, Chen Yakin felt a little strange. In the past, when Lao Ni had something to do, he would always call them both over. Regardless of whether he was trying to show off to Chen Yakin that he valued her. Although she was the deputy manager, in his eyes, he was the one with whom she was the same. The reason why Ren Rongrong, the manager, was on equal footing was due to other reasons. Anyway, he never called Ren Rongrong alone to discuss matters. Ren Rongrong went out for more than half an hour. When he came back, his eyes were red. He sat down and started to pack the things in the desk drawer. Chen Yakin was startled and asked quickly, "Rongrong, what's wrong with you?" Ren Rongrong shook his head and packed his things. After finishing his desk, he stood up and went to pack the clothes in the cabinet. In fact, they don't have many things, and the most important thing is clothes. When they are in the office, they wear very casual clothes, but when they get off work or leave the office, they cannot be casual. All the clothes that are not casual are hung in the cabinet. Several other people in the office did not dare to express their anger. Although they knew vaguely what happened to Ren Rongrong, they did not dare to ask. Chen Yakin stood up and walked over. Ren Rongrong had quickly put everything into 2 Baizai clothing bags. "Rongrong, tell me, what happened? What did Lao Ni say to you?" Ren Rongrong held the bag in his hand and looked at Chen Yakin. Chen Yakin was shocked. This was Ren Rongrong she had never seen before. Fire was almost coming out of Ren Rongrong's eyes. "Rongrong, what's wrong with you?" Chen Yakin asked. Ren Rongrong looked at her and said coldly, "Chen Yakin, stop being hypocritical. I'm leaving. I've been fired. Are you satisfied?" Ren Rongrong said and was about to leave. Chen Yakin reached out to pull it. Ren Rongrong picked up a calculator on the desk next to him, suddenly slammed it on the table with a bang, and yelled at the same time, "Get away!" Chen Yakin was startled and froze there. Ren Rongrong walked past her. Chen Yakin stood there blankly. Molly came over and said softly, "Sister Yakin." Chen Yakin suddenly woke up and chased out. Ren Rongrong was no longer in the corridor. Chen Yakin ran to the elevator. The elevator door was closing slowly, and Ren Rongrong was standing inside. "Rongrong, Rongrong!" Chen Yakin yelled and ran over, but it was too late. The elevator was already going down. Chen Yakin hit the elevator button. There were 2 other elevators. One was on the 22nd floor, but it just wouldn't come down. The other one was on the ground floor. I came up and stopped when I reached the 3rd floor. I was probably moving something, but it stopped moving there. The one on the 22nd floor came down, and then stopped for a long time on the 18th floor before restarting. The one on the 18th floor that Ren Rongrong was sitting on had already reached the first floor, but the result of the intelligent calculation of the entire elevator control system was that the one on the 18th floor was closer to Chen Yakin. The one on the first floor, no matter how Chen Yakin popped, I hit the button hard and it just wouldn't move. The elevator on the 18th floor finally started, and stopped again on the 16th floor. In fact, it only took a while, but Chen Yakin felt that it had been a long time. Chen Yakin cursed, "You are transporting people to death, occupying the elevator and not getting down." When the elevator came down, Chen Yakin was ready to scold the people in the elevator. Chen Yakin's cheeks bulged. When the elevator arrived, the door opened, but there was no one inside. Chen Yakin was immediately discouraged, walked in, and quickly pressed the button for the first floor. When the elevator reached the first floor, Chen Yakin ran out. She didn't see Ren Rongrong in the lobby. She hurried out of the door. There was no one outside the door. Chen Yakin ran outside to Zhongshan North Road. There were cars coming and going on Zhongshan North Road, but there was no sign of Ren Rongrong. Chen Yakin stood stunned for a while, then walked back. While walking, she used her mobile phone to dial Ren Rongrong's number. The call went through, but it rang twice and was pressed down. Chen Yakin dialed again, but what came over the phone was, "The user you dialed is temporarily unavailable." Chen Yakin went upstairs and walked into the corridor. She looked both ways. She did not go back to her office, but walked towards Lao Ni's office. "Thank you for the reward of 2 fishes at around 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. Thank you Westwind for your monthly ticket. Thanks for all the votes and reading. Have a good evening everyone." The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Shi Niang. Chapter 1217. Chen Yakin walked into Lao Ni's office. Lao Ni sat there and raised his head to watch her come in. Chen Yakin asked, "Has Ren Rongrong been fired?" "Close the door," Lao Ni said. Chen Yakin turned around, walked over and closed the door with a bang. Walking back again, Lao Ni nodded to the chair opposite the desk and said to Chen Yakin, "Sit down." Chen Yakin sat down and asked angrily, "Let me ask you, has Ren Rongrong been fired?" "Yes," Lao Ni said. "Why?" Chen Yakin asked. "Why? If such a big thing happens, someone must be responsible. You, me, her, the 3 of us. Who is responsible? What did Ren Rongrong do wrong? The result is there. Someone always made a mistake, so this result will happen. Who made the mistake, not her or you?" "It's you." Chen Yakin looked at Lao Ni and said blankly, "It was you who refused to close the position that caused the losses to expand." "Joke," Lao Ni said, "the keyboard is in your hands, and the account and transaction password are in your hands. By the way, the first thing you should do now is to change the transaction password immediately. I am not here. Now, don't let her log into the account and mess around." Chen Yakin was shocked. Although she didn't believe that Ren Rongrong would do such a thing, Lao Ni's reminder was right. This is something that must be done immediately after someone leaves, especially when Ren Rongrong left. He was so angry. An angry person cannot judge her by her normal behavior. If she didn't do it well, she might actually log into the system and perform some random operations. When they found out, when they came to their senses, all the positions she had opened had been wiped out, thus taking revenge on Lao Ni. Chen Yakin immediately turned the computer on Lao Ni's desk to face her. Lao Ni handed over the keyboard. After Chen Yakin logged into the system and saw that everything was normal, she breathed a sigh of relief and then changed the transaction password. This can be regarded as relief. Chen Yakin turned the computer back and pushed the keyboard towards Lao Ni. She said, "Come on, keep arguing." "What did I say before?" Lao Ni asked. The keypad and password are in our hands. Yes, the keyboard and password are in your hands. If you really want to operate it, can I stop you? Lao Ni asked. Nonsense, trading is disciplined. You are the boss. You didn't give instructions. How can we operate casually? Chen Yakin glared at Lao Ni and asked. Really? What about shorting Korean won and Japanese yen? Which of your orders passed me? Lao Ni asked. You told me to open a Hong Kong account, but for hedging, but as a result, you went to speculate in foreign exchange. I don't even know yet, right? Chen Yakin still stared at Lao Ni, but was speechless by his question. Lao Ni continued. Don't forget, you are the professionals. Why do we need you professionals? We need you to make professional judgments, make professional decisions, and take professional actions. Lao Ni said, I am a layman, what I did was definitely not professional. Otherwise, I would have done everything myself if you asked professionals to do it. I need you just to correct and transform me. The result is good. When things come out, you professionals put all the blame on me. Are you embarrassed? But we have warned you. At the earliest, that night, after discussing with Ren Rong, I felt that there was danger. If you didn't answer the phone when I called you, you would be scolding if you did. I spent money to hire a bunch of professionals, but they still called me at 3 o'clock in the morning to wake me up and listen to the opinions of a non-professional, right? Lao Ni asked. But if the decision had been made that day, at least the loss could be reduced by half now. Nonsense, I just won't answer the phone. Are you dead? You can't do it yourself? As I said before, the keyboard and password are in your hands. Chen Yakin stood up in excitement and shouted, you mean that in the future we can do whatever we want without your consent, right? Lao Ni slapped the table and stood up, not in the future, but you have done this before, saying, did I disrespect you? I know that you did not do hedging, but went to speculate in foreign exchange, did I criticize you? I've passed you by once, did I say half a sentence? I've always done this, but this time, you think about it, you want to listen to my opinion, you think about it, you want to respect me. Chen Yakin was furious, but was stopped by Lao Ni again. Chen Yakin scolded herself in her heart, oh my, why are you so stupid with your mouth? You obviously have your own reasons, but when you say it, you become yourself again. There is no reason. All the reasons have gone to Lao Ni's side? How is this going? If you want to say something, sit down and talk it over. If you don't want to say it, go back to the office. Lao Ni softened his tone and said to Chen Yakin. I won't go back, Chen Yakin said angrily. Then what do you want to do? I want to make it clear to you. Okay, Lao Ni laughed, I also want to make it clear to you. Chen Yakin glanced at Lao Ni, and when she saw his playful smile, she became even more angry and cursed. Why are you laughing? You're smiling, you're smiling, you're smiling, you're duplicitous, you're smiling, you're hiding a knife, you're insidious and cunning. Chen Yakin was actually at a disadvantage after such a barrage. This was no longer a business matter, but a private matter. It was even because the relationship between the two people was once very close, and it was a bit presumptuous and coquettish. Lao Ni, an old turtle, was relieved upon hearing this. He leaned back on the executive chair behind him and continued to smile. Say, whatever words you have left, say them all. Do you want me to help you find a dictionary? Chen Yakin cursed, boring. Lao Ni stretched out his right hand, patted the table lightly, and said, okay, let's talk about something not boring. Actually, Yakin. Don't call me that, it's disgusting, Chen Yakin cursed. Okay, then what should I call you? Lao Ni looked at Chen Yakin and asked. Chen Yakin didn't know what he should call her. She just felt that calling her Yakin was too affectionate and made her skin crawl. Chen Yakin said. Casual. Lao Ni smiled slightly and said to her, Chen Yakin, can I call you Chen Yakin? Chen Yakin, if I tell you, I have actually known about this day for a long time, and it was all arranged by me in advance, what would you think? What do you mean? Chen Yakin asked. She was really confused this time. When Xiaoren first came here, do you know why I arranged for you to be with her? She came to me through you, don't think I don't know, but in turn, I also asked you to learn from her. I believe, you will definitely surpass her one day. From this incident, it can be seen that your judgment and analysis ability have surpassed hers. Whether she leaves or not, to me, I really don't care. What I really care about is you. This department is so important. Do you think I would just hand it over to someone who doesn't know the details? Leave it to you. I only then will you feel truly at ease. No matter what, we are also relatives, I guess. I can trust you. So I said, one day, I already knew that she was going to leave, and I didn't care at all. Chen Yakin, you have matured and grown up. She is no longer dispensable in your department. Now that she is gone, just in time, I will appoint you as the manager of the financial business department immediately. No, Chen Yakin quickly shook her head and said, if Ren Rongrong doesn't do it, I won't do it either. I will advance and retreat with her. Lao Ni looked at Chen Yakin, shook his head, and said, you won't. What won't? You won't give up. Who says no? I will resign to you now, Chen Yakin said. Lao Ni pushed the phone on the table towards Chen Yakin and said to her. Don't forget, I'm not the only boss you have, there are two other bosses, Lu Ligan and Meng Ping. Come on, call Meng Ping and tell him that you quit. Also, by the way, tell him, the reason you quit is because I fired Ren Rongrong, and she just caused me a loss of more than 300 million, come on, tell Meng Ping. Chen Yakin felt that she suddenly panicked. She glared at Lao Ni, stood up, and left without saying a word. When she walked to the corridor outside, she felt something was wrong. It seemed that there were still many things that had not been explained clearly. She turned around and walked back. When Lao Ni saw her leaving and then coming back, he asked, is there anything else? Tell me, what nonsense did you talk about when you were talking to Ren Rongrong? Why did it involve me? Chen Yakin asked. Lao Ni asked in surprise, how could I involve you when I talked about letting her go? Then why is she so hostile to me, as if I was the one who caused her to be expelled, and is she so angry at me? Chen Yakin asked. Then you are going to ask her. Why are you asking me? How could I possibly know about your women's family affairs? Lao Ni looked innocent. Chen Yakin snorted and cursed, shit, how could you not know about women's affairs? I see you are thinking about women all day long. Lao Ni originally wanted to say, I miss you too, but this grass is actually very fragrant. But when he saw that Chen Yakin had turned around and walked out, Lao Ni didn't say anything. He just looked at her back and almost laughed. Of course he knew why Ren Rongrong was so angry when he returned to the office. When Lao Ni was talking to Ren Rongrong, on the one hand he blamed Liang Rongrong, and on the other hand he kept praising Chen Yakin's ability and accurate judgment. When Lao Ni spoke, he revealed it intentionally or unintentionally, making Ren Rongrong feel that these words, this is what Chen Yakin said in the summary she wrote to herself. This of course made Ren Rongrong feel very angry, as if she had been stabbed in the back. The reason why Lao Ni wants to sow discord between Ren Rongrong and Chen Yakin is because, as Chen Yakin said earlier, Lao Ni knows Chen Yakin too well. He knows that if Ren Rongrong feels aggrieved and Chen Yakin's sympathy is aroused, according to Chen Yakin's temper, she will really advance and retreat with her. If the two of them slapped their butts and left together, then the matter would be a mess. How could this department handle it? Lao Ni originally wanted to provoke Ren Rongrong to slap Chen Yakin, but this completely stopped Chen Yakin's idea of advancing or retreating with her. I just didn't expect that Ren Rongrong didn't slap Chen Yakin, but just smashed a calculator, but the effect was the same. Lao Ni chuckled and thought, these little girls are still young, no match for me, let's see how I can play around with you. Chen Yakin returned to the office, told Molly and Baojuan the new trading password, and told them to close the position, close the position, close all positions. Sister Yakin, the Japanese yen is also closed, Molly asked. Chen Yakin is right. Where's the internal disk? Baojuan asked. Didn't you hear me tell you to close all positions? Chen Yakin glared at her and said. The department is in turmoil and people are feeling uneasy. This is the time when trouble is most likely to occur. The safest way is to short all positions first and wait until you have thought about it and your emotions have stabilized. Chen Yakin saw that the calculator Ren Rongrong had smashed on the table in front of her was cracked. Chen Yakin leaned over, reached out, and took the calculator over, and threw it into the waste basket. Baojuan, change the system login passwords for both internal and external disks. Thank you Ba Liang, Zheluo, and Blue Imagination for your monthly votes. Thanks for all the votes and reading. Have a good night everyone. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Shi Niang. Chapter 1218. The warehouse was all empty, so Chen Yakin sent everyone off work early. She also got off work herself, took a taxi and hurried back, went upstairs, first walked to the door of Ren Rongrong's room, rang the doorbell, and then knocked on the door. Shouting loudly, Rongrong, Rongrong. There was no movement inside. Chen Yakin returned to her room. She walked to the balcony and looked at Ren Rongrong's balcony. Still no one was seen. She walked back to the room, sat down on the sofa, and dialed Ren Rongrong's number. The message on the phone was still please call users are temporarily unable to connect. Chen Yakin threw her mobile phone on the coffee table and leaned against the armrest of the sofa. She saw that the TV cabinet opposite was covered with a thick layer of dust. She wanted to mop it with a mop, but was too lazy to move. She just stared blankly. Looking there, on the turned-off TV screen, he reflected himself lying on the sofa. Chen Yakin stretched out her finger and pointed at the figure on the screen. She wanted to say something, but finally couldn't. She put down her hand in frustration, touched the phone on the coffee table again, and pressed the redial button. The user you dialed is temporarily unavailable, unable to get through. Chen Yakin put her mobile phone back on the coffee table, raised her ears and listened outside. There was no movement in the corridor, but outside the balcony, the noise of tourists by the Meisi River could be heard. Chen Yakin stood up and walked over to the balcony. She looked towards Ren Rongrong, but there was still no one there. Chen Yakin walked back, closed the door to the balcony, thinking about the thick dust under the TV cabinet, and walked to the bathroom. After 2 steps, he walked back and fell down on the sofa again, with his eyes open, as if he was not listening, but looking at the movement in the corridor outside. It was already dark outside. Chen Yakin opened her eyes and saw the swaying tree shadows on the ceiling. This was sent in by the street lights by the Meisi River. She touched the mobile phone on the coffee table and redialed, the user you dialed. Temporarily unavailable. Chen Yakin sat up, shook her head, stood up, walked to the door and turned on the light, opened the door, walked to the opposite side, and rang the doorbell while shouting, Rongrong, Rongrong. There was no movement at the door. Chen Yakin walked back to the room, opened the door to the balcony, walked out, and looked towards Ren Rongrong. The room was dark, but the Meisi River below was already brightly lit. The bridges were decorated with lights and colorful decorations. The bus, dressed like a circus stage, shuttled back and forth. People on the boat stood up from time to time and waved to the people on the bridge and the shore. Chen Yakin walked back to the living room and felt hungry. She opened the door of the refrigerator and took a look. There was nothing in it. How could it be there? She wouldn't have a meal at home for a month. Even if there was something, it must have been broken. Chen Yakin looked at her watch. It was almost 9 o'clock. She took her mobile phone, carried her bag, walked outside the door, and pressed the elevator button. The elevator came up from below. Chen Yakin walked over to the other side and pressed the doorbell, but this time it's not called wrong wrong, wrong wrong. There was still no movement in the door. The elevator arrived and Chen Yakin went downstairs. Chen Yakin walked along the Meisi River to Fenki Road. She stood at the intersection and looked both ways, but she was at a loss. Although she had lived here for more than a year, she really didn't know if there were any restaurants nearby where she could eat. A taxi stopped in front of her, and someone got out of the car. Chen Yakin got into the car without thinking. The driver asked her where she was going, and Chen Yakin said, "A place to eat." "Where is the place to eat?" the driver asked. Oh, Chen Yakin finally came to her senses and said, "Go to the West Lake and take a banana leaf." She sat down at the banana leaf restaurant and ordered a curry crab, fried prawns, charcoal grilled pork neck, and green beans with shrimp paste. After thinking about it, I ordered 2 more bottles of beer. When it came time for the Thai waiter and chef to perform, they probably saw her alone and thought there was some story. They surrounded her and sang 3 songs in a row. The chef kept making faces, trying to amuse her. She laughs. If she didn't smile, they seemed to have no intention of stopping or letting her go. This made Chen Yakin feel very embarrassed. She originally just wanted to have a meal in silence, but unexpectedly she became the focus of the restaurant. Chen Yakin herself immediately felt the difference between herself and the people around her. They were at least 2. I am the only one who orders such a large portion of food. It's strange enough for a woman to go to a regular restaurant instead of going to a small shop to entertain herself. It's even weirder for a beautiful woman to eat alone. She not only eats but also drinks. How sad and lonely are you? People around her were looking at her, their eyes were so curious, and some were whispering, which made Chen Yakin feel like a monster. Chen Yakin hurriedly asked to pay the bill, paid the bill and walked out, only to realize that she was not full at all. She felt that she was simply running away. She walked around the West Lake and ate another bowl of lotus root starch and 2 tea eggs, and then she felt a little full. She asked the store and bought 2 bowls of unsoaked lotus root starch. Holding it in her hand, she walked to a park and took a taxi home. After getting out of the elevator, I walked to Ren Rongrong's door first. This time instead of ringing the doorbell, I knocked on the door and shouted, "Rong Rong, Rong Rong." There was still no movement inside the door. She walked to the balcony and looked over there. It was still dark. Chen Yakin walked back, sat down on the floor in the living room, picked up her mobile phone and pressed redial. Still the user you dialed is temporarily unreachable. Chen Yakin threw the mobile phone on the sofa. She stood up and finally made up her mind to drag the area under the TV cabinet. She took the mop and mopped it. Thinking that the area under the sofa was also very dirty, she walked over and pushed the sofa away. Sure enough, she mopped it with the mop. Then she looked around the living room and saw that it was all very dirty. Even the mop she had just used, the mopped area was not clean enough. Chen Yakin gave up using the mop, but found a towel and wiped the floor bit by bit. After cleaning the living room, I went to clean the room and guest study, then the kitchen, and finally the bathroom. This took several hours, and the Meisi River outside was quiet. Chen Yakin's clothes were soaked several times. She walked into the bathroom and took a quick shower before she felt comfortable. She put on her nightgown, opened the door and walked to the opposite side. She knocked, and knocked, but there was still no movement in the door. She walked back to the balcony, where it was still dark. Chen Yakin sat on the sofa and dialed the number. Can't get through at the moment. Chen Yakin held the phone and suddenly started crying. Wrong, 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 where did you die? At this time, everything that happened during the day began to sweep over her. Chen Yakin felt like she was trembling all over. It was too bullying. She said, it was too bullying. She didn't know whether she was complaining for Ren Rong Rong or for herself. She just knew. Too bullying. This night, Chen Yakin slept on the sofa in the living room, so that if Ren Rong Rong came back in the middle of the night, she could hear the sound of the elevator opening and closing, as well as the sound of Ren Rong Rong opening and closing the door. But throughout the night, she seemed not to hear such a sound. Chen Yakin looked at her watch. It was already 8 o'clock. At this time in the past, she must have washed up. Either Ren Rong Rong knocked on her door, or she knocked on her door. They went out together every day and took a taxi to work. Chen Yakin stood up, opened the door, walked to the opposite side, stretched out her hand and pressed the doorbell. She wanted to shout in her heart, but no sound came out of her mouth. There was still no movement at the door. Chen Yakin walked to the balcony to take a look. The balcony over there was no different from yesterday. Chen Yakin pressed the redial button on the phone. The phone rang. You dialed. And Chen Yakin hung up the phone. It was already past 8 o'clock, and Chen Yakin fell down on the sofa. It was too bullying, she thought, it was too bullying. Chen Yakin woke up from hunger. She got up, walked to the refrigerator, and opened it. It was empty. Then she remembered that she had bought 2 bowls of lotus root starch last night. She went to the shoe cabinet at the door and looked at the lotus root starch. The bag is still on the shoe cabinet. Chen Yakin walked to the water dispenser and brewed 2 bowls of lotus root starch. She went back to the sofa and sat down. The lotus root starch was too sweet. By the time she ate the second bowl, she actually felt a little nauseous, but she still persisted and drank them all. Finished eating. Chen Yakin picked up the phone and saw that there were 15 missed numbers on it, all of which were calls from the office. Chen Yakin redialed Ren Rongrong's number, but the message was still the user you dialed is temporarily unreachable. Chen Yakin simply called the phone is also turned off. Okay, let you also listen to the user you dialed is temporarily unavailable. Chen Yakin first walked to the balcony to take a look, then walked out the door, walked to the opposite side and rang the doorbell 3 times, and then came back. She felt that all this was a routine and she had given up on Ren Rongrong's plan to stay at home. Chen Yakin walked to the sofa and sat down. When she fell down, she thought of one thing. Among the many missed calls, none of them seemed to be from Lao Ni. Chen Yakin quickly opened her phone and took a look. Sure enough, there was not a single one from Lao Ni. Chen Yakin suddenly felt that this thing was not so enjoyable. But leave him alone. You're such a bully, I'm telling you, you're such a humming bully. Chen Yakin felt that her eyes were a little wet, so she quickly fell down and closed her eyes. In a daze, Chen Yakin dreamed that she was standing in front of Ren Rongrong's door and kept ringing the doorbell. She knew that Ren Rongrong was inside, but she refused to open the door. If you don't open the door, I would continue to press the doorbell. Chen Yakin dreamed that she kept ringing the doorbell. Ringing the doorbell. Ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong. Chen Yakin heard Ren Rongrong's doorbell ringing, and felt that it was her own doorbell ringing. She was not pressing Ren Rongrong's doorbell, but Ren Rongrong was pressing her own doorbell. Ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong. Chen Yakin shook her head and her voice became clearer, ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong. It was indeed her own doorbell that rang. Chen Yakin was startled and shouted loudly, Rong Ron. She ran over barefoot and opened the door. Ah, Chen Yakin exclaimed. Thank you for reading the book every day and for the reward at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. Thank you Baikan scholar, don't take it too seriously, Tianying 1978, Zibei Kangsheng Edison, Haining Auto Parts, Niuhua Ba Po Chuan Chuan, and Potato for your monthly votes. Thanks for all the votes and reading. I wish you all good health. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Shi Niang. Chapter 1219. Chen Yakin suddenly opened the door and saw that standing at the door was not Ren Rong, but Meng Ping, holding a casserole in both hands and several vest bags hanging on her wrists. Chen Yakin was stunned for a moment, and then said "Ah," with an exclamation. She thought of herself being barefoot and wearing a nightgown with nothing underneath. Especially today, I didn't wash my face, didn't brush my teeth, my hair is unkempt, and maybe there's even eye poop in the corners of my eyes. Chen Yakin exclaimed "Ah," and then shouted, wait, don't come in, oh, come in. The man had turned and fled. She escaped into the bedroom, hurriedly changed her clothes, then opened the door and went to the bathroom. When she went to the bathroom, she stretched her head and looked into the living room. She saw Meng Ping standing in the living room. Chen Yakin said sit down, Lao Meng, sit down. She had already entered the bathroom and walked to the mirror in front of the sink to take a look. Fortunately, the face in the mirror was not unkempt and there was no eye mucus in the corners of her eyes. Chen Yakin took a long breath and hurriedly brushed her teeth and washed her face. Chen Yakin walked outside to the living room and burst into laughter. She saw Meng Ping sitting on the sofa, his waist straight and holding the casserole in his hand. Chen Yakin smiled and said, "Put it down, why are you still holding it?" Meng Ping said, "Your place is so clean, but I'm worried about the oil on the bottom of the pot. I don't know where to put it." "What?" Chen Yakin asked. "Dinner, oh, clay pot chicken," Meng Ping said. Chen Yakin wanted Meng Ping to put it on the dining table. After thinking about it, she took a few newspapers, spread them on the coffee table, and said to Meng Ping, "Put it down." Meng Ping put down the casserole, then picked up the vest bags at his feet, put them on the coffee table, and took out the disposable lunch boxes from inside. Chen Yakin looked outside. It was already dark and a day had passed. She asked strangely, "How do you know I didn't have dinner?" "If a person can eat normally, he can go to work normally," Meng Ping said. "You didn't even go to work today." "Then you can call me and we go out to eat," Chen Yakin said. "Can you get through on the phone?" Meng Ping asked. Also, for a person who can't eat normally and go to work, generally speaking, she prefers to stay at home and doesn't like to go out. Hey, you have a bowl. Chopsticks, or should I use these disposable chopsticks?" "Oh, yes," Chen Yakin ran away. "There's also a spoon," Meng Ping chased after him. Chen Yakin brought the bowls, chopsticks, and spoons over, and Meng Ping opened the lid of the casserole. Chen Yakin couldn't help but exclaimed, "It smells so good." Meng Ping looked at her and said, "Have you not eaten for a day?" Chen Yakin nodded. Meng Ping scooped up half a bowl of soup and told Chen Yakin to drink the soup first, then eat meat and vegetables. Chen Yakin said thank you, picked up the bowl and took a sip. She opened her eyes wide and shouted, "It's delicious, Lao Meng, this chicken soup is really delicious." Meng Ping smiled and said, "I know it tastes good, this restaurant does a good job." Chen Yakin pointed to the casserole and asked, "Where is the hotel that packs this and asks you to take this away?" "Xiaosha, the boss is an acquaintance," Meng Ping said. "I'll just give it back to her next time." "It's so far away, why do you run down to buy food?" Chen Yakin said. "I know it's delicious there. I'm a foreigner and I'm not familiar with other places. Also, there is a pattern to the packaged dishes," Meng Ping said. Chen Yakin asked curiously, "What's the rule?" "That is, Anything served from a big hotel will not taste good. You must go to a small restaurant. Meng Ping said, and Chen Yakin thought about it, and it really made sense. By the way, with so many dishes, should I drink some wine? You don't even have wine, right? Meng Ping asked. Chen Yakin nodded. Meng Ping smiled bitterly and shook his head. You are an ascetic, and you treat yourself like this. Busy, busy. I went to the office as soon as I opened my eyes. I couldn't care less. Chen Yakin said that she remembered, put down the bowl, stood up and ran into the kitchen. After a while, she ran out with an unopened bottle of Jiafan wine in her hand. This was when she first moved here, and she went to buy some oil and salt. I bought the soy sauce, vinegar and sugar together to use as cooking wine, but after buying it, the pot was never cooked here. Is this okay? Chen Yakin asked. Meng Ping said yes. Chen Yakin raised the bottle and asked doubtfully, can it still be drunk? It has been stored for more than a year and has the shelf life expired. Bring it here. Wine has no shelf life, Meng Ping said. I wonder if the wine gets better as it gets older? You are still from Shaoxing. Your daughter Hong from Shaoxing, is she buried in the ground when she is just born? Dig it out. This is a legend. Anyway, my mother never buried me when she gave birth to me, Chen Yakin said. Whether you have buried it or not, you won't know until you get married. Maybe they have already buried it and are waiting to surprise you, Meng Ping said. Chen Yakin smiled and gave Meng Ping the wine, then took a cup and said to Meng Ping, you drink, I eat, I'm starving to death. She took the vest bag where the meal was kept and took out a box of lunch. She saw that there were 2 boxes of medicine in the bag and asked, what are these? Are there any medicines packed in the hotel? I bought it near the restaurant, Meng Ping said. Half of the people who can't go to work and eat normally are in a bad mood, and the other half may be because they have a cold. It seems like you are the former. Chen Yakin's heart warmed up as she listened, and she said, but I'm not in a bad mood. I'm in a good mood now. When saying this, Chen Yakin felt guilty. She was indeed in a good mood now, but what about during the day and last night? This dish is so delicious. Chen Yakin quickly changed the subject. By the way, Lao Meng, when did you come? This afternoon. You've already given up your job. Why don't I, the boss, come over here in such a hurry that I'm pissed off? Who said I quit? No, you don't want to quit. Meng Ping looked at Chen Yakin and asked, that's great. In this case, I don't need to say anything else. I have been thinking about how to convince you. Okay, eat food, eat vegetable. I just couldn't get angry and felt unmotivated, so I was too lazy to go out in the morning, Chen Yakin said. What are you angry about? I'm angry. Chen Yakin felt that she couldn't say what she was angry about. She asked Meng Ping, by the way, I didn't go to work. Was it Lao Ni who called you? No, Meng Ping shook his head. It's Ma Li. However, when Molly was giving me a blow, Lao Ni was beside me, and he was still holding it. Boss, you know that no matter how anxious you are in your heart, you won't be happy on the surface. He has to carry it himself, but he really hopes that I can take care of it. Aren't you the boss too? No, the same. What's different? First, we belong to 2 generations. His generation's way of doing things is different from ours. It doesn't matter who is good or bad. Second, he is your full-time boss, and Pol and I are both part-time. Your amateur boss. Sometimes, amateur bosses are more effective than full-time bosses, because no matter how much hostility you have towards full-time bosses, you won't pass it on to our amateur bosses, right? Chen Yakin chuckled. This boss is divided into full-time and amateur. Of course, it's like when I used to work in a government agency. In the same yard, all the people with higher positions than me were my leaders. But these leaders are very different from each other. The leaders who are farther away from me are different from me. When we are together, we become more easygoing. Even if they have high positions, such as secretary and mayor, they will joke with me casually. But the closer the leaders are, the more serious they are. For example, our director never jokes with me. Why? Chen Yakin asked. There is a direct conflict of interest. A little brat like me, my promotion has not reached the level of the secretary or mayor, but our director is in charge. If he does whatever he wants, he will think whether it is good for him or not. I released incorrect information, and at the same time, I was worried that other colleagues would see it and feel uncomfortable, thinking that my boss was particularly appreciative of me, which would dampen everyone's enthusiasm for climbing up the corporate ladder. It's so complicated. Yes, wherever there are people, it is a small society. 1,000 people together will naturally form a small society of 1,000 people. 100 people together will form a small society of 100 people. 3 people together will be the same. A small society of 3 people will also be formed, and all the problems of the big society will also be condensed into this small society of 3 people. It's not that a threesome must have my master, but there must be a distinction between closeness and superiority. Otherwise, if 3 people all want to be the eldest brother, this small society will be extremely unstable. Guan Yu and Zhang Fei are about the same ability. Their structure is stable because they have a coward like Liu Bei as their eldest brother. The same goes for Liang Shan. Neither Wu Song nor Lin Chong can be the eldest brother. Only the coward Song Jiang can. Cowards are often the coagulant and lubricant of a small society. As Meng Ping spoke, Chen Yakin kept smiling. When Meng Ping finished speaking, Chen Yakin said, "Where did you learn this set of fallacies?" "Whatever fallacies, these are all summed up by myself." "They are unforgettable and bloody lessons," Meng Ping said. "What lesson?" "Me, I am a lesson," Meng Ping said. "When I first entered the agency, I was full of energy and worked hard to do well in all aspects and show my best side, and the results really showed. I am recognized by everyone as one of the most capable and smart young cotters in our compound, but when it comes time to be promoted, I am often not included. Do you know why? Because during team discussions, some people will always say that Xiao Meng's performance in all aspects is good, but he is not mature enough. Should he practice more?" Passed without objection. What is maturity? Can an immature person be capable? Will he work better than others? Doesn't it make sense? I figured it out later. It's not that I'm not mature enough, but that I'm not timid enough. I'm too sharp and too capable. It's my fatal wound. Think about it, when you want to promote a section chief, all the section chiefs participate in the evaluation. When you want to promote a director, the same goes for all the section chiefs. For me, when I become a section chief, I am one of the best in the section. Feng, when you become the director, you are the best in the department. Is there any other way for others to survive? Even the director is worried that after I become the section chief, I will soon threaten his position as director. So, Xiao Meng is not mature enough. If I practice more, it will become everyone's consensus. I will become a celebrity in the compound. Everyone is very good to me. But when it comes to the critical moment, who can help me? None. At this time, I realized that only cowards will become the core of a small society. Unfortunately, it's too late to understand. After a person becomes a smart person in everyone's eyes, it is no longer possible for you to become a coward. Everyone knows that you are pretending to be a coward, although many cowards are just pretending. But they know that they are the smart ones if they pretend to give in from the beginning. Just like Liu Bei, he showed from the beginning that I was your eldest brother, but I was very timid in fighting. Later, the work of fighting and killing naturally became the responsibility of the second and third brothers. I was only responsible for the rear. Lord. Yes, it sounds reasonable, Lao Mang Chen Yakin smiled. It's not what it sounds like, It's me who is the truth itself, Meng Ping said with a smile. Come on, let's talk about you, what's going on with you? Wait, don't say it, let me tell you, okay. Lao Ni fired Ren Rong. You think it's unfair, don't you? You feel that Ren Rong has done nothing wrong, and you usually have a good relationship with her, so you feel that you have to stand up for her, and it's not satisfying if you don't stand up, right? Chen Yakin nodded. Thank you for the reward of 2 fishes. Thanks for all the votes and reading. Have a good evening everyone. The Pentium Era, South to North. Author, Mei Shi Niang. Chapter 1220. Chen Yakin, Ren Rong was fired this time. Do you feel sorry for her in any way? Did you say something about her in front of Lao Ni? Meng Ping asked. Chen Yakin shook her head and said no. Then why are you sad? Meng Ping asked. I just feel that she did nothing wrong this time and it is very unfair to get such a result, Chen Yakin said. Meng Ping nodded. I understand your feelings. I think back then, I saw those who were mediocre than me were promoted one by one, but I was not. I also felt unfair. At the beginning, I also felt very angry. But then I figured it out. I wanted to climb up, and others also wanted to climb up. If others climbed up, but I didn't, it was not the person who climbed up that I should hate. He just has the same idea as me. He is not wrong. It is not him who can decide who can go and who cannot go, but the higher UPS. It is the higher UPS that I should hate, but later, I felt that the higher UPS also there is nothing wrong. The people chosen above are the people they think are correct. I have no right to ask them to set standards based on me. If there is a mistake, it is my own fault. Whether it is the standard or the unspoken rules, they have always been there and have never changed. I claim to be a smart person. Don't I even understand this? I understood but did not change myself because of it, and was eliminated. Of course, I was the only one to blame. After thinking about it this way, I became calm and could live in peace with everyone. Since I can't change myself, I can only choose to leave, because I already know that I am not suitable to stay there. If I don't leave, I will still complain about everything. Isn't that funny? I say this not to say that you are wrong, but to tell you that there is nothing fair or unfair in this world. It is more about the perspective of looking at the problem. If you give 100 yuan to 10 people, each person will get $10. Block, it seems fair, but let me tell you, most of these 10 people must think it is unfair, and very few people will think it is fair. Some people feel that they are more capable and deserve more than others. The problem is that most people have blind spots and feel that they are stronger than others, and few admit that they are weaker than others. Even if someone is self-aware and doesn't feel that he is better than others, he looks at the worst person and thinks, this kind of rubbish gets 10 yuan, why am I still the same as him? He doesn't know, then he feels that he is, although he is very capable, he looks like trash, and I feel that he does not deserve to receive 10 yuan. So I said, this is just a matter of perspective. You are not the boss. You don't know and have no right to decide who can stay in this company and who should leave. The boss is the one who decides. The boss makes such a decision. There is no boss. You won't know the reason. Even if he just feels that there are too many people in the department and needs to lay off one person to save money, it is reasonable. No company retains people for the sake of fairness, which will cause greater unfairness. If nothing else, take some state-owned enterprises as an example. There are indeed problems of superfluity and low efficiency, but these problems are not caused by workers. Yes, what does it have to do with workers, but they still have to be laid off. You are right and you have to be laid off. Is it fair or unfair? Of course it's unfair from a worker's point of view, but it's fair from a social point of view. Why? Because such an enterprise won't lay off workers, transform or go bankrupt, and society can't stand it. Where are you going to get it, so much money to maintain this fairness? So I think, as far as Ren Rongrong is concerned, you can sympathize with her, but there is no need to feel angry, and there is no need to feel guilty. Lao Ni must have Lao Ni's considerations. If Lao Ni thinks that she is indispensable, I will definitely keep her, are you right? As for you, as long as each of us does it ourselves, we can have a clear conscience if I don't stab others in the back or add insult to injury. We can't change anything else, let alone change the boss's decision. You can only do your best. Be yourself, and next time if Ren Rongrong has any difficulties and needs your help, you can help her. This is a friend. Instead of saying now, okay, you are fired, I will quit with you. This is loyalty, but it is not a rational behavior. If this is the case, then it is best for you to make fewer friends in the future, because you may lose your job at any time because of a friend. Or, conversely, when you lose your job, your friend will not be with you. Will it only make you more sad? How can we make friends like this? It's better to come naked and leave naked. Work is work. It's important to separate it from friendship. Don't confuse it with friendship. Believe me, you work hard and are capable. It can help more people. Chen Yakin laughed and asked, is this what you have been thinking about all this time? Meng Ping also laughed and said, no, this is what I thought of saying now. I have forgotten what I thought about along the way. Anyway, you didn't want to give up your choice, so those words are not important. I'm going to see if Rongrong is back, Chen Yakin said. If she comes back, I will ask her to come over for dinner. You are so good at talking, so you can enlighten her. Meng Ping said yes. Chen Yakin stood up and walked out of the door. Meng Ping also followed. He stood at the door of Chen Yakin's room and watched Chen Yakin ring the doorbell and knock on the door. She shouted Rongrong, Rongrong. When it was over, she turned her head and faced Meng Ping. Shaked his head. Meng Ping said, if I guessed correctly, she should have returned to her hometown. For her, she was indeed injured this time. It can be said to be an unforeseen disaster. The instinct of animals is that when they are injured, they will always return to their hometown. Go. This is also her nest, Chen Yakin said. I'm still crying to find my mother. There is no mother here, Meng Ping said. The two came back and sat down. Chen Yakin asked Meng Ping, when you are injured, do you also cry for your mother? Meng Ping shouted, how is it possible? How could I do such a thing? I am already independent. Me neither. If it were me today and something like Rongrong happened, I would definitely not go back to Kikiao. I would rather stay here alone, Chen Yakin muttered. I don't think Rongrong will either. That means there is a new place to go. People like you will usually have a lot of people coming to contact you, right? Meng Ping asked. Chen Yakin was silent. Let's see, maybe she can heal faster than you. You are still working for her and haven't gone to work. She has already gone to work in a new position in a new place, Meng Ping said. Don't worry, I have the ability. People don't have to worry about where to go, especially in today's society. Chen Yakin sighed and said, I hope so. The two of them ate until about 10 o'clock. Chen Yakin felt that she was very full. The two of them cleared the coffee table. Chen Yakin asked, which hotel are you staying in today? I don't know yet. Let's go out and look for it now, Meng Ping said. Chen Yakin looked at the sofa and said, if you don't mind it. Meng Ping quickly said, if you let me sleep on the sofa, I will definitely not mind it. The two of them laughed, and Chen Yakin said, that's wronging you, big boss. What a grievance. It's great to have a sofa. I've lived in an office for several years. Meng Ping said, thinking, I haven't told you yet, I squatted in a pit with my head on my head and slept for a long time. The next morning, when Meng Ping woke up, he saw that Chen Yakin had already gotten up, and ran out to buy soy milk and flatbread and fried dough sticks. Meng Ping turned over and sat up, saying to Chen Yakin, "Great, I'm done, haven't had this for a long time." The big boss eats delicacies from all over the world every morning when he gets up, Chen Yakin said with a smile. Eat air, Meng Ping said, "Really, I am busy every day. However, I get up late. After working for a while, I have lunch. It has been a long time since I even had breakfast." As Meng Ping said this, he was about to grab the fried dough sticks to eat. Chen Yakin patted his hand lightly and said, "No one will compete with you. Go wash your face and brush your teeth first." Meng Ping chuckled and went to the bathroom. After breakfast, the two of them went downstairs. Meng Ping drove Chen Yakin to splendid Jiangnan. When they got downstairs, Chen Yakin looked at Meng Ping and said with a smile, "Why do I feel like I was escorted to work by you?" "But thank you." "Thank me for what?" Meng Ping asked. "Thank you for yesterday's dinner, and I'll keep your cold medicine for later use." Meng Ping said, "Okay, then I want to thank you for the breakfast and your sofa." "I'm not going up, are you okay?" Meng Ping asked. "It's okay, don't worry, amateur boss, I will work hard for you," Chen Yakin smiled. "Really?" Meng Ping asked. Chen Yakin nodded, "Really? Then I'll go back to Nanjing," Meng Ping said. "Okay, drive slower on the road and pay attention to safety," Chen Yakin said. When Chen Yakin gets off work every day, when she gets out of the elevator, she will first go to Ren Rongrong's door, ring the doorbell a few times, and then go back to her room. No matter how late she gets off work, this has become her habit, but every time, there is silence inside the door. Later, Chen Yakin herself did not expect anything to happen inside after ringing the doorbell. "But you still have to press it?" On this day, Chen Yakin got off work at around 9 o'clock. When she got out of the elevator, she walked to Ren Rongrong's door and rang the doorbell. This time, there was a rustling sound in the door. Chen Yakin's heart almost jumped into her throat. "In my eyes, Rongrong is back." Sure enough, Chen Yakin then heard the sound of taking off the safety chain and the sound of the latch turning. The door opened. People inside and outside were stunned for a moment. Chen Yakin saw that it was a young man who opened the door. The young man asked, "Who are you looking for?" Chen Yakin quickly said, "Is Rongrong here?" "Rongrong? Who is Rongrong?" the other party asked, and Chen Yakin was confused by the question. "Honey, who is it?" A girl's voice came from inside the room, and then appeared at the door, looking Chen Yakin up and down. Chen Yakin quickly pointed to the opposite side and said to them, "I live across the street, here, this is not." The girl breathed a sigh of relief and smiled, "My sister turns out to be a neighbor." "Hello, we just moved here today." "Then this is your house?" "We rented it." "Oh, is it Ren Rongrong who rented the house to you?" No, both of them shook their heads, and the girl said, "We don't know Ren Rongrong. We rented from Yuxing Real Estate." Chen Yakin understood that Ren Rongrong didn't want to see her at all.